what are you most struck by about the reality on the ground in Ukraine?
I mean, it doesn't sound like the most profound thing at all, but what sort of fascinates me is how quickly humans adapt to war, how overnight, how things can just turn upside down overnight. So as it was in this situation where you have the tension, but nobody was sort of sure if anything was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, boom, the invasion happens, land, sea, air, um, everything shuts down. Suddenly, you're hearing artillery bombardments constantly, air raid sirens are going off, you're going to a bunker, there's no more work, there's no more school, there's no more shops opened, your streets are full of checkpoints, there's this, everything changes in an instant. And how quickly human beings adapt to that. And that's something that fascinated me. And just how quickly it changed. And I even found myself like on the nights that were a little bit quieter where I couldn't hear so much shelling and artillery, like almost feeling uncomfortable because I was like, I can't hear any, I can't hear any rockets right now. Is this a bad sign? So it just it's fascinating how quickly we adapt to change and in even change that's horrific like that.
In foreign policy, we could debate it forever,
Yeah.
and that's why you have talk shows that go on for hours about this on any radio station across America and any numerous television stations. What you don't see is people really putting an hour on TV talking to your average Ukrainian, which you have actually done, and you have actually talked to Ukrainians that are just like us, that 2 months ago, kind of heard things could happen, but they've been hearing that for years. That suddenly are finding themselves in the middle of war and are trying to escape for their lives.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. Tell us about some of the people that you met and what they had to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really impossible situation for people. I think there's frustration on many levels in terms of people who have been wounded and shot and had their house shelled, that try to send pictures or relay what's happening to friends and family in Russia, and they don't believe them. They, you're lying. This is not happening. This is not true. And it's hard to wrap our heads around that happening even in the 21st century. Just everyone I met just had sort of a horrific war story, whether it be, when the Russians come to take over their place, the first thing that they generally do is take their phones from them. And then they steal their food and they steal their clothes. And it's just this sort of very callous and terrifying situation. And almost everyone I talked to that was coming out of these humanitarian corridors was shot at, So it's really just
Does that give you perspective, Holly? Because I think we can hear that. I think we can watch it. But the thought that next week I could be packing up my house and trying to get out of Austin, Texas with my children, I can't even imagine that. You know what I mean? Has it changed the way that you feel about your own security, about how quickly life can change, and has that highlighted the vulnerability, I guess, that we could all feel at a certain time?
certainly something that can happen. It can happen anywhere, and I think sometimes we think, obviously, in the United States, we aren't surrounded by a nuclear power sort of autocracy, but I think that it's something that can happen anywhere, and I think that security is a fleeting concept. I think it gives you a little bit of pause for thought of how much do we want to be constantly relying on the government. And I guarantee if America is at war and something happens to you in your home, nobody's coming when you call 911. Then that goes to say for ambulances, for first responders in any capacity, we have to be a certain degree self-sufficient, certain degree, and we have to also look at how much responsibility we put on other entities as opposed to what things that we can do in our own environment to protect and defend ourselves.